Let's talk about finance books. I think books are just about the best and cheapest way to learn from somebody. They're usually cheaper than a course, and there's more information in a book than, say, a blog post or a YouTube video. So books are one of my favorite ways of learning things. So in this video, I've picked out some really great finance books that I've read recently that I really liked, and I think that you're going to like too. Two of them are just general personal finance books that I thought were really great, and three of them are stock market books. So all of them are books that I've read and one that I've written. So hopefully it's not the usual list of books that you see absolutely everywhere, and it'll introduce you to some new and great new books that you might want to read in 2021. Now, a lot of these books that I've picked do have an Australian bias because a lot of them are from Australian authors, but I think the messages can be read and benefited no matter where you are in the world. So I don't know any of these authors personally. I've never met any of them. I've never talked to any of them, even on social media. I might have commented on one of their videos perhaps, but I don't know these authors personally. I just really like their views on finance, and I think that you will too. So let's jump straight into the 5 books that I've chosen, and I'll go through each one and go into a bit more detail about why I liked that particular book. I'll also add timestamps in the description if you want to jump to a particular book. Okay, here are the 5 books. The first one is Top Stocks 2021 by Martin Roth. Now let me get straight to the point. If you live in Australia and you invest in the stock market, I think the Top Stocks books are like a must-have. Like every year, Martin Roth, the author, makes a new book creating a list of all the companies that fit certain criteria, and it's criteria that I firmly believe in also. And I think I started buying the Top Stocks book back in maybe the 11th edition. I can't remember. I was buying these books back when I was a growth investor, and they still work even as a dividend investor. So if you're only going to get one book on my list, I really think that this is the book to get. It's just such a wealth of information. All the research is done for you.
So Top Stocks is just a list of all the companies within Australia that meet certain criteria. So jumping straight to the entry criteria to get into the book, it needs to be in the All Ordinaries Index. I usually go for the ASX 200 when I'm looking for stocks to choose, but I have no problem going to the All Ords Index, which is the top 500 instead of just the top 200. They have to be publicly listed for at least 5 years, and they must have dividend payments for each of those years. He makes sure they have a return on equity of at least 10%. I don't look at return on equity now. I did when I was a growth investor, but as a dividend investor, it's not as important to me. He also looks at debt to equity ratio, which I also look at. I usually say a company shouldn't have more than 80% debt to equity, and he's being more conservative at 70%, which is great. But let's jump straight into the companies and how they're formatted. So each page in the print edition will get 1 page per company. You'll get a chart, some of the fundamentals, including the dividend yield, the share price return over the last 5 years. One thing that I find really important in this book is the outlook. Like if you're looking for a company to invest in the future, it's really important to have a think about how that company is going to perform in the future. So the outlook is really helpful when trying to choose between a few different companies. So that's basically what the book is, a big list of companies within Australia that meet certain criteria.
Okay, the next book is The 1K Project by Canna Campbell. As well as being an author, Canna is actually a financial planner. She also has her own financial services firm, SAS Financial Services, I think. And a lot of you already know that she's also a YouTuber. She has a YouTube channel here, Sugar Mama TV. But let's talk about her book. Now, the reason I like this book of hers in particular is because it's all about breaking down bigger financial goals into smaller steps. I've always talked about not focusing on the large numbers. I think people can get overwhelmed, but breaking them down into smaller steps really makes it more manageable and more achievable.
In the book, she explains why she's written the $1,000 project and a bit about her background. She talks about how financial stress can be toxic, which is something I agree with. And then she'll go into how she actually breaks down her goals. And here is basically what I said earlier, that taking a big goal and breaking it down into smaller, more manageable and achievable goals really makes things a lot easier to achieve. There's a little bit on passive income, which is something that I love. And we go more into her $1,000 project, where she wants to save up $40,000, but she's breaking it down into 1,000 lots. Another point she makes is it doesn't matter how long it takes to get to that $1,000. If you're saving $30 here, $20 there, it doesn't matter because every dollar counts and it all adds up. And once she's got to her goal of $1,000, she would then put it into the share market.
The third book is Shareclicity by Danielle Ikuya. I hope I've said that right. Now, Danielle's worked for some of the really large investment firms here in Australia, and she's also writes occasionally for Money Magazine. So her book Shareplessy is basically about trying to make investing in the stock market, investing in shares, easier to understand, like breaking down the big terms and what they mean and things like that. And you know, I'm all about trying to make things easier to understand, and it's what I try and do with this channel. I try and break down topics that seem complicated to make it more accessible to everybody, because really the average investor doesn't need to know half the stuff that they think they're supposed to know, and that's what scares a lot of people away from investing. So keeping it simple is what Shareplessy is all about, and I'll show you some of my favorite parts.
So it is all about getting back to basics. She goes into the type of investing, such as direct investing, which is buying single stocks, indirect investing, which is ETFs and the like. Explains each type of different indirect investing, such as LICs, ETFs, and so on. She explains about dividends. She explains about share indices. And of course, the difference between trading, charting, shorting, all of those terms.
The fourth book is Unfuck Your Finances by Melissa Brown. Okay, apart from the clickbaity trend of using the F word in your title, which seems quite common these days, it's actually a really good book. While it's targeted more to millennials based on a lot of the language is really sexed up and tried to make it a lot more trendy and cool, I think anybody can benefit from the actual message. It has a lot of information about getting out of debt and starting savings and just general overall finance, adulting things that you really need to know about. So if you don't like most finance books because you find them super boring, you'll probably like this one. Now, I'll show you what I mean about the types of language it uses.
You can see that she uses a lot of more cool terminology about let's get naked about money and how to break up with money, that sort of thing. But there are topics that if you can look past that, or if you like that sort of thing, she talks about doing a financial detox, which is something I do every year, money mindfulness, being more mindful about your spending, budgeting, different bank accounts, especially this is an Australian book, so it targets a lot of Australian bank accounts, and how to become a more conscious consumer, which I think everybody can benefit from. Of course, she also goes into debt, shares, and more. She makes some interesting points about talking about money. I've actually made a video about this a few years ago, and I was saying that I think more people should talk about money because sometimes it can seem impolite or awkward, which is why some people don't know how to budget. They don't know how to manage their money. But if we opened up and talked about it and had real conversations about it, I think a lot more people would be a lot more financially savvy.
Okay, and the fifth book, the last one, is mine, Take My Dividend Strategy by Tracy Edwards. So this is my book, and while I didn't want to include my book in this list, I was really trying to find another dividend strategy book that had all of the concepts that I believe in strongly, and there were a few that were close but didn't actually follow my methodology. And I just thought, well, obviously the book that follows my methodology the most is the one that I wrote. I usually keep this book pretty inexpensive. You can get the digital version for around $3. Mostly because I feel like keeping it low, you can get a lot of that information from my YouTube channel anyway. You don't need this book, but if you just want it all in one place, it can be a really helpful book. So of course, let's have a look at my book and I'll show you what sort of information is in it.
So my book basically just goes through all of my criteria, why I've chosen that specific criteria, and just why I choose to invest for the dividends. I do go into a few more advanced strategies such as dividend stripping strategy and so on, but it's just a nice simple book. You don't need this book if you watch my channel. I think most of you know my criteria and my strategies by now, but just if you wanted it in one place, it's a very quick and easy book to read, and that's why I've included it.
So those are the 5 books that I think are really great if you want to start investing or you just want to get ahead of your personal finances in 2021. So like I said, if you're getting started in investing, I really recommend getting Martin Roth's book, Top Stocks, because a lot of the research is done for you. It'll just simplify choosing what companies to invest in if you're going to go with single stocks. Anyway, have a great 2021, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.